Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Sebastijan, and thank you for staying till the very end for this last talk of the day. I expected less numbers of people, so thank you for that. This is a slide about me. My name is Sebastijan, and I'm a front-end developer at Prototype. I come from Osijek, which is a thriving IT community in the eastern part of Croatia, and I have a design background, professional background, when I transferred to front-end development, and I brought some of it with me, and that inspired my love for typography, or for typesetting. But with today's improvements in browser capabilities and everything we can do that we couldn't do just a couple of years ago, you could say that just setting the type and leaving it there is just half the story. So why fluid typography? Does anybody of you know already what I'm going to talk about? Okay, some of you. Fluid typography is a technique which enables us to create more responsive, more flexible, and more resilient, responsive layouts general. We'll go through the specifics in the presentation, but also one of the most important reasons why we should concentrate on this so much, because UI is 90% text. For example, this is a random screenshot of WebCam's website, and it's fairly graphical in itself, yet it conveys no useful information when text is removed. So we should focus on the text heavily, and we don't want to impose any obstacles for users while consuming textual content. That's why we have to focus greatly on setting the type properly. A great saying is to treat text as an UI. So we don't talk usually about typography in the same way we talk about UI in general. We talk about reordering blocks when we do responsive, about reflowing content, about ordering stuff reversely than it should be, but we don't talk about breaking typography for most of the screen sizes. Regarding UI, it's fairly easy to get it signed off by a designer. Yeah, it looks good on desktop, it looks good on mobile, but at least from my experience, you don't get text set in 4 or 5 breakpoints in the design. You'll maybe get 2. With UI in general, I mean the visual things, you get it in a couple of breakpoints maybe, but the text not. So what we do, we improvise. We grab a media query, and we throw in a breakpoint. And then we have a situation where on the desktop it looks okay, it's a fairly nice and readable font. We test it on the mobile, it's also fairly okay. And then we do the thing with the browser when we resize it all day. And then somewhere in the middle, we see that it reflows ugly. Okay, not a big problem, we'll throw in just another breakpoint. And we think it looks okay. On the most screen sizes, it looks okay, but what we have actually done is we created these 2 trouble spots. In these spots, the text is either too big right after the breakpoint or too small right before the breakpoint. Because if we were to write down the screen sizes and the font sizes for each pixel, we would see that for only a pixel or 2 difference in screen size, we bump up the font by 10, 15, 20%. Just can be correct for, I don't know, 799 pixels to have 20 font size, and for 801 to have 24 font size. Some of that isn't correct. The problem with that is that we want to achieve the optimal viewing distance for the font size. And the optimal viewing distance flows. It doesn't jump. We can see that on this image, that devices such as mobile devices, tablets, and similar that we hold in our hands, we tend to keep closer, and that the font sizes need to be smaller to be optically the same size as the font on the desktop that is further away. And we can achieve that by using breakpoints, but people usually tend to compensate for that by moving it closer and further, and we can achieve that with fluid typography. Far better than with just the breakpoints. And there are a lot of screen sizes in between. We don't want to introduce 10 breakpoints for each paragraph of text, and we need to cover all these resolutions in between. So how to fluid? We will cover what it makes possible to create beautiful fluid typography in modern browsers, and that's just a couple of things. First, it's viewport units. They consist of viewport width and height. Most of you are probably familiar with it. We will focus today on viewport width, as height is not needed, and calc. Calc is a fairly new but widely adopted function of a browser, which enables us to do basic arithmetic operations. It's supported widely. Viewport units are supported throughout all modern browsers, and calc is supported by everything besides Android 4.4 or something like that. We will take calc, some viewport width units and pixel sizes and etc., and try to calculate the perfect fluid size. We'll actually try to create this. So to have a limited minimum font size below which we can go, limited maximum size above which we can go, and in between we'll interpolate font sizes perfectly for each pixel of screen size. So we can do it fairly easy in one step, but it's not perfect, but let's see. So we take just font size 2 units of viewport width. You could say that it's 2% of viewport width. And we get a fairly good result for such a short code. We get scalable text, which gets far too small on small sizes. But it works almost okay on everything else. Given that it's such a short code, you could say that it's okay, but viewport units are quite a blunt instrument, and they need some guidance to make them work as they should. We could maybe use minimum font size and maximum font size, but sadly they don't exist. This is an approach we can use to try and fix that problem, because using calc and using 3 viewport width units and adding 16 pixels, we assure that even on the smallest screens, let's say even 0, we at least have these 16 pixels of font size. Situation is a bit better here. Let's focus on the titles maybe, because paragraphs start already small, don't have a size to shrink. But titles are okay, but maybe we don't want the smallest size to start from the smallest viewport width. Maybe we want to keep it on the fixed minimum size and then start enlarging the font from 1800 pixels. So we want to limit maximum and minimum font size. We do that with media queries. We say that the minimum font size is 42 pixels, maximum is 56, and introduce the fluid calculation for the in-between. This creates a different kind of problem. Focus on the title here. You see that it jumps in between. So it jumps when it's needed to go from 42 pixels to the fluid calculation, and again it jumps when it goes to the fluid calculation to the 56 pixels. It happens because as the browser interpolates the font size, it doesn't perfectly match those font sizes that you've set in the fixed way. There are a couple of calculations you need to do to make that perfect, and it's completely possible to do it. However, it's very limiting. Let's see if we take 2 viewport widths as the base font size for the fluid part of our titles, and we want them to start with 16 pixels. Maybe it would be better for paragraphs, not titles, but we want them to start at 16 pixels. If we divide that 16 pixels with 2%, we get that it has to start at 800 pixels. It's okay, but it's very limiting. Here's actually a table by Smashing Magazine, which gives us these calculations in advance. Let's focus on the middle column, which we used for the earlier example. It says that we can only increase, if we use 3 viewport width units, we can only increase from 12 pixels to 15 pixels to 18 pixels, so 3 pixels for each 100 pixels of viewport width. And if we calculate that correctly, and we go back to that calculation earlier and put in those breakpoints with those font sizes, it'll scale perfectly, it'll transfer from the fluid to static perfectly, but we are strictly limited to these sizes. So is that it? Of course not. Somebody already calculated for us the better and actually the perfect way to interpolate the fluid font sizes and to have them perfectly transferred to static and in any rate that we want. I grabbed this formula from Mike Rittmüller, and go and check his blog. He's great. He has a lot of other topics besides this one. It may look daunting at first, but it's quite simple once you get it, and you can always use a mix-in, and there are other automatic types how you can do it, but let's just go through it. You need to enter minimum font size, minimum screen size, maximum font size, minimum font size, and maximum screen size. And this crunches the numbers up, and of course you use it in the middle part, and it perfectly interpolates the fluid typography. So you see there is no jump in the title between the static part and the fluid part, and it scales perfectly. What's best, it's perfectly adaptable. You can do this for font sizes so they shrink for, I don't know, 5 units across 1,000 pixels, or you can increase or decrease the font size dramatically for 10 or 20 font sizes throughout only 100 pixels of viewport width. Maybe you want to keep the title in one line. I managed to do this here until now. Also, you can do it with paragraphs. So why would you want to do that? Maybe you don't want to have equal column height issues. You can keep paragraphs 5 lines throughout the whole experience of different screen sizes, all the way up until the smaller screen sizes when it doesn't make any sense anymore. But it gives you an opportunity to handle typography a bit better, and it enables you to limit the breaking of the paragraphs and of the titles in multiple rows. Sometimes we see that our titles, some of you have some major static title on the website, and it reflows into 5 rows. It can get ugly. But if we set up the fluid typography properly, we can keep it, let's say, in 4 lines on all sizes. There's also a quote by Robert Brinkhurst that anything from 45 to 75 characters is widely regarded as a satisfactory length of line. Some other research lately shows that 95 characters is actually the optimum size for speed reading, but it actually doesn't matter. What the idea behind this is that we can keep the line length fixed. In this example, we can see that line length mostly doesn't change up until the smallest screens. So the selected part is marked at 70 characters, and you can see that we hover around 70 characters throughout the whole viewport width. And the lagging isn't here because of the fluid typography, it's because of my overpowered MacBook can handle the resizing of the screen, apparently. So once more to recap, you have great browser support, you have completely flexible and scalable type scale, and you can use it however you want, however, with small and great impact for your websites. It creates simpler responsive code. Since you don't introduce as many breakpoints, you just use 2, and third as a fallback value for the minimum font size, you make it quite simpler than, I don't know, putting 4 or 5 breakpoints for each text. And in the end, you have what we all want, better experience for your users. They will have less obstacles to reading text on a big screen, on a small screen, and everything in between, and you're certain that you are covering all the viewport sizes with the correct size of a text. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. We have some time for questions, if anyone has any. Aha.
Hi. I think you forgot to say about Safari on a Mac. It won't support calculating pixels and viewport width. That just doesn't work.
It doesn't work?
Safari on a Mac, no. You have to use percentage plus viewport
I'm
units.
not sure. We have this implemented on our website, and it works. Maybe we can check it up after the presentation. Maybe something changed lately.
It's possible, yeah. I just wanted to check.
Sorry?
I just wanted to check.
I think it works. We can check it after the.
Yeah, because the last website I did at my firm, I used calc viewport width plus pixels, and it just broke on Safari on a Mac. And to fix that, I used a calc of percentage plus viewport width, and that worked.
Okay, I will check that.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm really not sure. I'm sorry if I'm talking rubbish here, but yeah.
No, you're not, because maybe it involves percentages and not unitless values or some combination like that. That's weird. Safari was a problem earlier. I know they had some issues with calc, but I'm quite sure it works on our website, because that's the one thing that we test thoroughly.
Okay,
but
thank you.
We'll see. Thank you.
Safari is always a problem, yeah. Thank you.
Safari is the Internet Explorer of the new age.
Very correct. Thank you.
Yeah.